Imagine your local township chips in $5,000 of public money to help plan a massive new regional fire and EMS district. You want to know how that money is being spent, so you show up to the planning meeting. Instead of taking a seat, you watch the boardroom door click shut, and you are told you are not invited, an informal working group. In his view, they are gathering data and evaluating options, rather than acting as a formal authority. This formal legal complaint from public safety advocates argues the exact opposite. Because this committee is funded by tax dollars and empowered by resolutions from parent municipalities, keeping its operations secret is a violation of state law. When officials use administrative loopholes to redraw public safety maps in private, taxpayers naturally start asking what exactly is being hidden from the people footing the bill. To understand the advocate's argument, we have to look at the Michigan Open Meetings Act. This analysis outlines the statutory definition of a public body. As we see further down, this committee performs a governmental function by actively drafting an intergovernmental agreement and directing public funds. Municipalities often try to sidestep these transparency laws by labeling their early-stage planning groups as strictly advisory. The logic assumes that if a committee only gives advice and doesn't make the final vote, it can stay private. But Michigan courts routinely reject that excuse. This breakdown highlights that if a committee is winnowing down options before presenting a final proposal, it is actively deliberating public policy. The Open Meetings Act applies regardless of the advisory label. When one city treats a multi-government initiative like an exclusive internal project, they strip the contributing townships of their legal oversight. Those residents paid for a seat at the table, and they're being financially disenfranchised. Bureaucrats have a strong motive to keep these early meetings quiet. Negotiating complex, politically fragile details like regional funding formulas and new boundary lines is much easier without residents pushing back on every draft. In public policy, this creates what is known as a fait accompli. By delaying public engagement until a massive, polished proposal is completely finished, officials build insurmountable momentum. By the time citizens are finally allowed to comment, the structural math is locked in, making it nearly impossible to change the outcome. This closed-door approach causes severe collateral damage to the people already doing the work. Mobile Medical Response, or MMR, is the massive medical provider currently maintaining the region's emergency infrastructure. The CEO of MMR explicitly attended a public council meeting to request a seat at the steering committee table to help plan the new district, but the committee completely shut him out. Intentionally locking the region's largest existing stakeholder out of the room changes the tone of the entire project. It stops looking like a collaborative regional upgrade and starts looking like an opaque, hostile takeover. This raises an immediate investigative question. Why would a steering committee aggressively exclude the area's primary EMS expert from planning the very fire and EMS district they operate in? One major theory points to territorial carving. A secret committee can quietly design boundaries to absorb only the most profitable, high-call volume urban areas. This strategy secures the best revenue, leaving the complex, lower-revenue rural scraps entirely on the shoulders of existing providers. Drafting a binding intergovernmental agreement without consulting the agencies currently running the system is incredibly dangerous. The committee is finalizing operational frameworks without verifying if the math actually holds up on the ground. Hiding the structural architecture of the new district shields it from immediate financial scrutiny. It allows a select few to secure preferred terms long before the neighboring townships realize they have been outmaneuvered. To understand why carving up the map is so destructive, you have to look at how regional EMS survives. The entire system relies on cross-subsidization. The steady revenue from high-volume urban calls is required to fund the long, expensive drives to low-volume rural areas. If the secret authority absorbs that central territory, the cross-subsidization model collapses.
The financial engine keeping rural ambulances running is removed. This forces an existential question for providers like MMR. If they lose that central revenue hub to the new district, they likely cannot physically sustain operations in the outlying townships. Hiding these deliberations in a single city office risks bankrupting the emergency lifeline for the entire surrounding county. The secret timeline of the committee is also doing compounding damage in real time. By keeping the exact borders and dates a mystery, they paralyze any future planning for the providers currently on the ground. Right now, MMR is actively trying to purchase property and invest in long-term infrastructure to better serve the county. It is impossible to safely execute large financial investments or sign long-term leases when a closed-door committee is quietly redrawing the jurisdiction lines you operate in. Open Meetings Act compliance serves as a critical safeguard.
Without public oversight, new policy risks dismantling the very safety net it was designed to build.